Alright y'all, so in this video we are going to be installing the Can-Am Rad Relocation Kit. This is a Can-Am specific relocation kit, and as you can see, I successfully have it installed. It functions properly, and I'm even going to include a little clip at the end of the video of me riding with it on there. Now, I'm going to walk you through the steps real quick before I show you the process that I went through to install it. Start off by saying right off the bat that I strongly suggest you watch this video all the way through before you start working on your own. I want you to see just how in-depth this process is. It is not, I wouldn't really say it's insanely difficult. I'm not a mechanic. I've done a little bit of work on my truck, but that's just from looking up YouTube videos. And I could not find really any descriptive videos on how to install this kit. So I kind of, and my instructions wouldn't load either, so I had a lot of difficulties with that as well. But I tried to put together as good of a video for y'all as I could on this process, so maybe y'all won't struggle like I did. Like I said, watch the video all the way through to the end because I made a few mistakes and I had to take my bike apart about 3 or 4 different times and go back and correct some mistakes I made. So watch the video all the way through to the end. You'll see the whole process, and then hopefully it will help. So the order of operation that I would suggest when doing this project is, first, take your side plastics off. I'll show you how to do that in this video too. I'm going to show you how to do everything that I'm telling you to do right here. Take your side plastics off, then take your your front rack off, then take the front plastics off. You're going to have to take all of that off to be able to access everything anyway, because the kit comes with literally everything you need. And at first, since my instructions wouldn't load, I wasn't sure if I had extra parts or what, because it seemed like a bit much, but no, it comes with everything that you need. I did end up buying some hose clamps from AutoZone just because if you don't have a specific tool, the hose clamps they provide you with are kind of, I didn't really care for them. So, yeah, so take your side plastics off, your front rack, your front plastics off. This will allow you easier access to your radiator. You're going to want to take your radiator out, your fan out. Then you're going to want to take your, of course, you're going to drain your coolant before you do that. Then you're going to want to take out your stock reservoir tank, and then you can bypass that line where the stock reservoir tank was. Again, I'll show you how to do that. Then you're going to want to put your front plastics back on. You're going to want to drill your holes. Then you can either assemble your rad kit and then attach it to your rack before you put the rack back on, or you can put the rack back on, assemble your kit, and then put that on, run your lines through your holes that you drilled and everything, and then finish assembling all that, and that's pretty much the process. So like I said, watch the video all the way through to the end. You'll know the whole process, and then you should be able to do it yourself. If the instructions will load, I would suggest using those as well and make it a whole lot easier. Hope this helps. Well, what the heck is up, guys? Marshall Murkison here, and I am currently working on my four-wheeler. I am relocating the radiator, and yeah, started on it last night, got the radiator out, got the fan out, and right now I'm just trying to put it together in the relocation kit, and I'm fixing to install it on my four-wheeler. So this is what we're looking at right now. Got the kit right here. I could not find, the instructions won't load for how to put this together, so I'm going to go out on a wing and a prayer and hope I do it correctly. And yeah, so I've already got my holes drilled and everything here to run the hoses through, and the power cable. Down in here is where it used to set right here. I had 4 bolts to get the radiator out, and then behind that was 2 bolts to get the fan out. And my gosh, y'all, I'm not lying, it was tough. You had to get back in around here to get that bolt that was holding the fan in place behind it. I mean, we couldn't even fit a socket wrench back there. I had to take 2 fingers, put a socket head behind it, and then hold that with vice grips while I took the screw out. Hunter actually held it for me while I took the screw out. So that was fun. But yeah, now I'm currently trying to figure out how to get this put together, and once I get that put together, I'll show y'all what I did. Okay, so I have the radiator attached. If you look at it, the way this is set up, for whatever reason, these spacers they have here, I couldn't pull up the instructions, so I'm just kind of winging it here. I was able to put there, it already came with clips here to put a screw in. It has threads in it. The kit came with 2 extra ones, so it was 4 extra ones, so I was able to put some on the inside here too, so I could just put the screw in and grab the threads here without having to put a nut on there, which is cool. But the spacer here, it just slides right back out, and a washer doesn't go around that, so there was no way to create, to make this gap tight. The radiator would just slide, forward. There was play in it, and I didn't like that. I don't know why it's designed that way. So what I did was I put 4 nuts here and on the other side as well, and when I tightened the screws down, it made that tight in there, so there's no play in that now. I'll probably put some JB weld on it or something just to make sure that it doesn't go anywhere. When I hit bumps and stuff on the trails, I don't want those washers to end up getting worked out and then the radiator's loose again. But yeah, so without the instructions, this is very interesting. But I do have the radiator attached. Now I'll attach the fan. The next part will be the hoses, but first I'm going to try to figure out how to get this decal attached here. Alright, so here's what we're looking at. None of the holes that are pre-drilled line up with the radiator relocation kit. It said it was supposed to be the right one for this model, and I'm thinking now that it's not. But I have a plan. I'm going to I put the relocation kit on, and I went ahead and marked with the Sharpie where I need those holes to be drilled at, so you can barely see that right there and right there, and then here and here. So we're gonna go ahead and drill the holes we need. All right, so I got my holes drilled in the actual location where I needed them. So already put the kit on there. It lines up well. So next thing is going to be to attach these hoses to the radiator and then run them down through to the stock lines. Alright, so I got my hoses attached to the radiator now. And I'm not gonna lie, man, this clamp here, that sucker was difficult to get on there. It was a process, but yeah, so the hoses are on there. Now I'm just going to run them through the top of the four-wheeler, and we'll cut the hoses and put them together. Okay, so got it mounted in place now. Down here, used the coupler, put the 2 hoses together where I cut this to fit, and then I went and bought a couple of clamps for the hoses because the clamps they have are ridiculous that come with the kit. So I just bought some standard hose clamps. Got those clamped in place now. Okay, so here's what we got going on right now. I was going to bleed my radiator, and when I was looking through everything on how the process of how to bleed the radiator, I realized it didn't make any sense because the radiator, where you pour the radiator fluid at, is in here, which is a lower center of gravity than your radiator, and it has to go down under here and come back up through the radiator. So I was like, okay, well, why would that work? And I got to looking at a couple other videos. The issue is that you can find a lot of good videos for the general idea of how to install these things, but this is a Can-Am specific radiator relocation kit, and the videos do not do a very good job of walking you through this process of assembly. And like I said, the instructions on the website would not load for me. So I was just sitting here trying to figure it out on my own, And after watching back through one of the videos I found on how to do it, I noticed that, of course, they used some of the parts that I thought were just extra parts. So now I'm going through the process of trying to assemble this. So basically what I have going on right now is this. I had an extra piece of hose here with the bend in it, and you just hook it up to the intake up here. It bends around this way. You attach this extra piece you have here where you can pour your coolant in from the top here, and then it's going to run out through here, and I'm going to attach this radiator hose here. I'm sorry, got the camera off. Hose here, so I can add the coolant, and it'll go through here, and then down through here, down into the engine. And then we have a spot to hook up your overflow tube. I'm going to mount the overflow tank here. Again, there's another tank under here, which you already saw. I'm going to go through this process and try to figure it out. And as I figure it out, I'm going to try to explain it to y'all. So hopefully this video will be helpful, and maybe somebody can get some benefit out of it. And maybe it'll be a little bit easier for you to install your relocation kit than it has for me, and than it has been for me thus far. Okay, so I have my hoses hooked up now. So now I have my intake port here. I also added my overflow tank here. I'm fixing to take this off and see where the plug is for this, so I can just kind of try to get this completely out of my way so I can access this. I'm pretty sure down here there's a spot for a hose. I may have to take this back off and attach the hose, and then run it to this tank over here. I'm gonna figure that out here in a minute. Side note, this does not come with the radiator cap. I looked at another video, and he also said that he didn't have a cap come with it. So that's awesome. Fortunately, I went to AutoZone and picked up a cap. I just brought this piece into AutoZone with me, and they were able to find a cap that would fit this. So keep that in mind. When you order this kit, you're going to need to buy a cap. This right here just has a rubber piece that fits down in here, and then a little plastic elbow joint that comes in here that you hook this overflow hose into right here, and you just have a little small clamp here that holds the hose on here, and then another one that holds the hose on up here. So moving on. Alright, so this rubber piece with the little holes and then the little dents in the sides, this is the one that you put into the cap, and it is a pain in the butt to get it in there. Just so you know, I used my needle nose and kind of pushed it in around the sides, went around the other side and grabbed a hold of it, pulled on it, and had to force it through there. Just be careful, you don't want to tear it. You only get one, but that's how I got that sucker set up. Okay, so I got this top piece off, and like I mentioned before, there is the radiator intake right there, or the radiator fluid intake. How I took this piece off here is, obviously this is the speedometer right here. So there is a couple of clips, clip over here and here, and then again on the other side. And when you look at it, well, here's the piece right here. It just sets in here like this. So you can see the clips right there and there, and you can just actually kind of just pull this through, and then just lift those two clips up, lift these two bottom clips off, and then just pull this faceplate here off, and then you can just kind of work it back through, and then this whole piece comes off here. This just actually pops off, by the way. Okay, so at this point I had to take the side panel off. It looks like I've done a lot more to it than I have, to be honest with you. All you do with this is, we took this off. I already explained how I got this off. This front piece here just pops straight up. Pull it out. Take that, take your screen out here like how I showed you. Then this plastic piece here, how you get this out is you take the seat off. You just have a little lever on the back, pop it up, take your seat off. Very, very simple. Even more simple than my motorcycle seat. Far more simple than my motorcycle seat was to take off. You have a little handle right here you get a hold of. As you can see, you have a couple rubber washers basically. grab a hold of it has a handle here, just pop straight up, lift it right out. I wish I could say this plastic side panel here was as easy, but my gosh, it is not. You have a million of these little bad boys holding it in place. And unless you have a special tool to remove these, this is how I did it. I took a flathead screwdriver, put some separation in between this piece and this piece. Once I got the separation in there, I took a string, a strong string. You know, of course, you can't use sewing thread or something like that. It has to be a string that you can't just pull on and break. Wrapped it around this piece and just pulled on it till I popped this piece out. And then this piece is far easier to get out after that. Just look at it, locate where all of these pieces are. You are going to have to take this inside piece here out first, which goes in there just like this. And take all the brads out of this first. Take this piece out. Then you'll be able to locate where the rest of them are for this side piece here. And pop it out. Then you can access your bleed screw. Your bleed screw is actually right here. I'm going to have to see the owner's manual. Now, of course, you have your screw down here where you can drain your radiator fluid at, but this is not where you bleed it. It's either this screw, it's either this screw here, or it is this screw right here. I'm not quite sure which yet. I'll have to look at the owner's manual, and I'll be able to figure it out, and I'll try to show that to y'all as well, because again, I didn't find a video on how to bleed this thing either. So what I'm doing now is I followed this tube to find it goes nowhere. This tube does not go anywhere. So I'm taking this off. I'm running a tube from the bottom of this container here, my overflow container, to this here, because there has to be a hose that comes from the overflow container to somewhere. I'm assuming it goes here. I don't know. Maybe it just drains out, but I'd imagine not, because, you know, if it overflows and then it's gone, what's the point of that, right? So yeah, so we're gonna fill her up, and well, no, we're not either. We're going to run the hoses and everything, and then only thing that'll be left after that is to bleed it and put the plastics back on. Okay, so I finally have it all installed here. I have the receiver for the coolant. I have the overflow tank. I have the overflow hose. Comes around to the overflow tank. Goes down into the tank. I have the hose that comes out of the bottom of the tank. I just ran that down through the hole that I drilled for the fan and radiator lines. Then it comes back up. Well, let me show you. Comes back up. I ran it through this part of the frame here, and then it comes back up this way. Ran it through the little hole where the original hose was. Sport bike just passed. And then I connected it right here to this radiator tank. So we should be good to go now. Now it's time to bleed it. Okay, so from what I can tell, the bleeding process is complete. You just add coolant to this top part till it's full. Then I also filled it up to the max line in the overflow tank. Release that bleed screw I showed y'all a minute ago, and you notice the coolant start to come down. Once I noticed the coolant start to come down, I didn't want it to go all the way down into the pipe and let air into the pipe again. So once you started to see it go relatively far down in there, I'd tighten the screw back up, fill it back up to the top, and then shake the four-wheeler a few times, and then I'd see bubbles coming out, popping up through the top. I just went through that process a few times, and then whenever I stopped getting bubbles, I would start the four-wheeler up, hit the throttle a couple times, and ran it for a few seconds, hitting the throttle a couple times, and then I would kill the four-wheeler, loosen the screw, and repeat the process. And every time I tighten the screw back up, I'd fill it back up and shake it, and then I eventually didn't get bubbles out anymore. I squeezed the hose all over the, all over it. I squeezed the hose down here. I squeezed this hose right here, and everywhere I squeezed the hose, the coolant would rise back up to the top, but no bubbles would come out. So I'm assuming that means that all of the air is out. And that was pretty much all I did. So it's all installed now and should be good to go. Now I just have to get these plastics back on. I'm just going to repeat the process that I did to get them off, and we'll be good to go. Okay, so as I stated earlier, I did not have the instructions when working on this, and I've been brainstorming and all this, wondering about this excess overflow tank. And when thinking about it, I've come to the conclusion that since there is no cap that comes with this radiator kit, clearly you need a cap. Obviously, I went and bought one, but realistically, I don't see why they wouldn't include one. And really, you don't even need this reservoir tank, the stock reservoir tank. So I've come to the conclusion that you're supposed to take the sucker off. And I didn't really just know what the tank looked like, so I was sitting there thinking about it, and I was like, if there's a pipe that goes this way, piece of piping that goes this way underneath it, then you would have your tube here and here on either end that attaches to it. And I looked up some Google images and found one, and sure enough, that's the way it is. So what we're going to do is take the reservoir tank out, and I'm just going to put a pipe coupler in between the hoses and clamp those down, and then it should be tightened up. Okay, so another conclusion I've come to is that I'm going to have to take this top plastic here off. I've taken both of the side plastics off again. I'm going to have to take this rack off and take the radiator kit back off again, which is simple enough. I mean, I'm draining the coolant now. Just going to disconnect this hose up here and this hose down here. And once I've disconnected the rack and taken the push pins out of the plastics here, it should just lift right off, and that'll give me access, because you can see with this stock intake here, you can't not get at that. So I'm going to have to do that. I would suggest when you start this project, take the side plastics off, as well as this top piece here. It'll save you a lot of headache, and it'll make it a lot easier to get the radiator out. Okay, so before I go any further, I want to explain what I've done so far and what I'm currently doing, so you don't get lost anywhere along the way. Obviously, you're going to want to detach your little hose from here, because you're not going to use this anymore, so you can just pull that hose out. You don't want to go through the headache of taking too many hoses off of this, because that will just suck. Also, I thought about this. I didn't detach it from up here, because all of this is together, and that's mounted right here. So instead, I detached the hose from right here, because it's just a lot easier. I can keep all this together now when I lift this off. Also, I did not attach the hose from here, because that was a pain in the butt. I just detached it right here, because it'll be a lot easier, and that'll just lift straight on out of there. So to get the plastics off, and as well as this piece here, I just want to kind of take it all off. Well, I guess I'll take this piece off first, and then I'll take the plastic off, but I'm currently detaching this. So this has 2 screws right here. Kind of basically have to have like a star bit to get that out of there. Should come in pretty much any standard socket set. Yeah, so you take that out, then you have yourself a couple of screws right here. You can see where that is mounted here. You get up under here, you can see that screw there, and it's the same on the other side. Then you have right in here, right here on both sides, this screw here. Now you're gonna have to come around behind this, of course, and get that nut back there and hold that in place while you screw this out. This is what I'm gonna do next. I've already done the other screws I showed you, and well, with the exception of these, I'm gonna do these next, then these, and that should just lift right off. Okay, so I got the top rack off, and just so you know, it is a freaking nightmare getting those bolts out down here. It's a freaking nightmare. They do not want to come out. And there is no nut behind it holding it in place. It's fixed, so don't be an idiot like I was and sit there trying to fit a wrench back there and hold that while you're trying to take it out. Just take the darn screw out. But, yep, that's all. Now I just have to get the plastics off. Okay, so another update with taking the fairings off, because, again, this is something that people did a poor job explaining in their videos. You have a screw here. You have 3 tabs here. You take the screw out, pop the tabs, pull it up. You just kind of push the tabs in and pull it up. Then you also have 2 screws, one here, one right up there. Then you have 3 screws. I can't even see my camera. 3 screws, one there. I just took that out, one there. And one more. Right. See if I can even, yeah, right there. Take those out, and then there'll, of course, be another screw on the other side. Take those out, and then hopefully it'll come off. Once you take the screws out, the wires clip on to this little piece here and here. And then there's one. I didn't take the mud guard out on this side because there's really not much point to my knowledge, but you had to take that little push pin out of there too. And then this should just lift right off now. Now, when you get this, the plastic off, your next step is going to be to get this fuse box out of here. It just sits in here like this. There's a little clip here. This, I'm not even showing you, my bad. This clips over this little piece here, and then again on the other side, so just take your flathead screwdriver, just kind of push this out some, and then this will just come right out. Just don't yank on it, you don't want to tear your wires. Now when you look up in here, let's see if I can even show you. Oh, you have to take my word for it. There's a screw back in here, a bolt back in here that we're going to have to take out. This intake hose here is in my way, so I'm going to try to move this over so I can get to that bolt so I can disconnect this, and then we're going to have to cut the clips they have holding this radiator hose on because it's not the type you unscrew. Okay, so I lied to you. There's a bolt right here and a bolt right down in there, and I've taken them out already. Now we have to get to the radiator hose clamps. Down in there, it's hard to see it. I'm going to try to get this off right now. I see that Buddy Matthew's helping me out here. He pointed these out to me. There's a bolt here and here, and then there's going to be a couple clips. We'll see if we can get that off. Yeah, clips are underneath. There. Good times. Alright, so that was it. You just squeeze right in here. You just squeeze them together with the needle nose, and it just pops right out after you take these bolts out. And yeah, now we can access these freaking clips and take them off. This is going to be a long freaking video, but if you want to know exactly how to do this, it should be the right video for you. So check this out. You just, with this hose clamp, when it's wrapped around the hose like this, if my camera would focus, it's focusing on everything but what I need it to focus on. There's a little, wow, it's not focusing. Okay, so anyway, there's a little bump on this thing. You just, where the wire's kind of folded over, where the metal's folded over, just put you some cutters on that, like that. Just squeeze it till it cuts. Have fun, because it's gonna suck. Or you can use a Dremel. Yeah, or a Dremel. And we're gonna couple this hose together now. Okay, so basically, with the new overflow tank, new radiator, new coolant intake, and all that, you no longer need this. In fact, if you still have your reservoir, the stock reservoir on here, you can't even take the cap off once you have the coolant in, because it'll just pour out. And I don't know if that would cause any issues or not with it still on there, but I wanted to go ahead and tighten everything up. So make sure you don't skip this step when you're installing everything. Take your plastics off first. You see how easily I could have accessed this radiator and fan if I had done that first. Then you just take this old one out. Of course, make sure you drain all your coolant. Take this old one out. The Can-Am radiator relocation kit comes with 3 metal couplers. It's essentially just little metal tubes. Just slide it in to each hose, and then you just use your hose clamps. I bought hose clamps from AutoZone because they're a lot easier to use, and just tighten them down. And yeah, now the coolant will just pass clean on through here and keep going where it's supposed to go. Now we get to reassemble all this, and just follow the process that you did when you disassembled it. If you think you won't remember how things were together, then take pictures as you go, as you disassemble it. Take pictures before you do each step, and so you can see how it went back together. So let's get it back together. Okay, so I got it all reassembled on the front here, and like I said, just follow the steps that I showed you how to disassemble it. Just follow back through those steps in reverse to reassemble it. So now I left this hose connected to the bottom here. I'm just going to take it and connect it up here where this spout is on the side here. So that way when it overflows, it can go through the tube and up into this. And then I'm going to use this as my overflow tube just in case this overfills. I'm just going to run it down through this hole here. Okay, so everything's hooked back up. It is completely reassembled and ready for me to flush it out. You can see where I ran this line down here and then through there, and it just hangs here to drain in case it overflows. Then I've got my other hose here, my overflow hose going down. I just kind of cut it because it's just crazy long. Just goes back up through here and into this. Now we're just going to well, I also of course reattached my hose down here, and I had this, once I had the fluid drained, I took this hose off and let the rest drain on out right here. So now I can just flush the system real quick. I'm just going to pour some coolant through it, flush it on out just in case I got any dust in there or whatever. And then I'm going to tighten the screws down and I'm going to bleed the system. Alright, so it's been a couple weeks since I did the relocation kit, and it's safe to say that it turned out very well. Some of the suggestions that I would make from the struggles I went through is, one, if the instructions will load for you, I would definitely recommend that you try to use those at least to help fill in some of the blanks that maybe I missed. Also, make sure that, well, it would be really beneficial if you clean your bike first, because when you're dealing with your radiator lines and all that, you're going to have to disconnect them and you know, splice your hoses together and all that, and you're not going to want to get any dirt in the lines or anything. And I did not do that going into it. I just didn't think about it, and that was a little bit of a hassle trying to keep from getting any dirt in the lines, as well as trying to find all of the rivets that I was trying to pull out of there. So something to keep in mind as well. But yeah, man, I'm pretty satisfied with it so far, and hope you all enjoyed the video. Hope it helps. If you did enjoy it, make sure you hit the like. Well, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and stay tuned. I'm doing more and more things to my four-wheeler as I can afford to do them, and I will try to record more videos like this one to hopefully help everybody out through the process of upgrading their four-wheelers as well. Y'all stay fit and do your push-ups.